Welcome to the online training for the Integrated Monarch Monitoring Program, or the IMMP. This video is a companion to the online training for the program, which is a program to collect data on monarchs and their habitats across their breeding range. In this video, you'll learn about many species of milkweed you may find in the Midwest and how to identify them. Correctly identifying milkweed is important to conducting the Integrated Monarch Monitoring Program well. There are several activities in the Integrated Monarch Monitoring Program that include identifying milkweeds. One of the objectives of this program is to get better counts of how much milkweed is present in certain habitat types. So one of the optional activities, the Milkweed and Blooming Plant Survey, Activity 1, involves counting milkweed stems. Then, as you likely know, monarchs only lay eggs on milkweed plants, so you'll need to know how to identify milkweed within your monitoring plot in order to conduct the Egg and Larvae Survey, or Activity 2. And of course, milkweed flowers and provides nectar to adult monarchs and other pollinators, which is also relevant to the Milkweed and Blooming Plant Survey. Thus, you'll need to be able to identify milkweed both in bloom and not in bloom. There are 73 milkweed species native to the U.S. Not every species is present everywhere, and many of them are rare, threatened, or endangered. Each species has a specific range of area where it grows. This webinar will cover milkweed species common to the Midwest, and a few less common species that you may also encounter. We'll also show a few trickster species that can look like certain milkweeds so that you can learn how to differentiate between them. Please note that this is not a comprehensive overview of all milkweeds potentially present in your area. A local field guide, such as Wildflowers of Wisconsin in the Great Lakes region by Blacks and Jesuits, can offer a complete list of milkweeds, including their ranges, habitat, frequency on the landscape, and identification tips that may not be included here. This is also not an overview of the biology of milkweeds. To learn more about milkweed life history, their physical structure, and relationship to other flora and fauna on the landscape, we recommend reading Milkweed, Monarchs, and More Field Guide by Rhea, Oberhauser, and Quinn, available on the Monarch Joint Venture website. Milkweeds are closely related plants in the genus Asclepias. One of the most widespread species across North America is Asclepias syriaca, or common milkweed. Common milkweed, like most milkweeds, has a milky sap when the stem or leaf is broken. Common milkweed has broad, oval leaves that are up to 8 inches long. All the milkweeds we will discuss today have smooth edges, as shown on the left here, not toothed or jagged, like the aspen leaf, shown on the right. The central leaf vein of common milkweed is sometimes, but not always, reddish and pinkish. Its flowers are in clusters called umbels, with flower shape that is characteristic of all milkweed flowers. These flowers have a moderate scent. The leaves and stems of common milkweed are covered with fine hairs. This is more pronounced on the younger leaves, but it can still be felt on the mature leaves and to some extent on the mature stems. These fine hairs make the leaves feel a bit velvet-like to the touch, especially on the undersides. Each leaf is attached to the stem with a petiole, which is essentially a small stem at the base of the leaf that attaches it to the main plant stem. This is an important feature to remember, as it can help you distinguish between some other milkweeds that look similar to common milkweed. Leaves are also opposite of each other along the main stem. Common milkweed grows to be 3 to 6 feet tall. It is clonal, meaning that it spreads underground via root-like structures called rhizomes. Therefore, it is likely that a whole cluster of common milkweed stems is actually a single plant, all connected underneath the soil through rhizomes. It grows in a wide variety of conditions, from moist to dry, from partially sunny to full sun. It is an open prairie plant and can readily colonize low-quality areas. The bright green on this map shows where common milkweed is commonly found. Here's another look at some characteristics of common milkweed. Note how you can still notice distinguishing characteristics such as oval leaves, fine hairs, and small petioles on the new growth on the left, despite its young age. Common milkweed exhibits great phenotypic plasticity, meaning that the physical shape may vary based on soil condition, nutrients, chemicals, weather, or other factors. Here's an example of two common milkweeds at the edge of an agricultural field. Note that even though the plant on the left no longer has the characteristic oval leaf shape, it still has the slightly pink midvein, the fuzzy leaves and stem, and a petiole attaching the leaf to the stem. The plant to its right is a more typical example of common milkweed. Asclepias incarnata, or swamp milkweed, is another common milkweed in the Midwest. It has lance-shaped leaves that taper to a point. These leaves also have a petiole attaching them to the main stem. The leaves are smooth and hairless. Swamp milkweed's umbels of flowers are often slightly darker than common milkweeds and tend to be flatter on the top. Notice the shades of pink within the swamp milkweed umbel shown here. Their flowers also smell more strongly and sweetly than common milkweeds. Leaves are in pairs opposite of each other. Each successive pair is oriented perpendicular to the one below it, resulting in a distinctive ladder-like pattern. Swamp milkweed grows to about 5 feet tall and can have many branches toward the top. Each branch may be topped with an umbel or multiple umbels of flowers. Swamp milkweed, as the name suggests, is often found in moist and wet habitats, sometimes along river edges and shorelines, or in wetlands. However, it does also grow well in prairie habitats or gardens that aren't obviously wet. Like most milkweeds, it grows best in full to partial sun. The bright green on this map shows where swamp milkweed is commonly found. Here are some more images of swamp milkweed. Notice the young growth on the left. The leaves still have the lance-like shape that tapers to a point at the end. Leaves are also in opposite pairs, with each pair alternating direction up the stem. Always touch and feel the milkweeds to determine if they are smooth or fuzzy, and become familiar with how each species feels. Asclepias verticillata, or whorled milkweed, has linear leaves that are extremely narrow, even grass-like. There's no petiole attaching the leaves to the stem. Instead, the leaf itself connects directly to the main stem. Its narrow leaves occur in whorls of 3 to 6 leaves around the stem. Small white umbels occur at the top of the plant. Each stem may have several umbels. Whorled milkweed is clonal, like common milkweed. You'll often find large patches of this species, and the stems are connected under the soil via rhizomes. Each stem of this interconnected plant is called a ramette. It's one of the shortest milkweeds you'll find in the Midwest, topping out around 20 inches tall. It prefers dry, sandy, or loamy soils and full sun. The bright green on this map shows where whorled milkweed is commonly found. See the small grass-like growth of the stems on the left and the middle? If you look closely, you'll see that the leaves are growing in whorls of 3 to 6 around the main stem. The petiole is absent, and the plants have small white umbels. Asclepias tuberosa, or butterflyweed, is a very recognizable milkweed on the landscape. It has very stiff, lance-shaped, or linear leaves. The leaves and stem are very hairy, so make sure to look closely and touch the leaves and the stem. On the main stem, the leaves alternate, meaning that one leaf grows on the right side of the stem, and the next leaf will grow on the left side, and the next one will grow on the right side again. However, on the upper branches, leaves are in pairs opposite of each other like swamp milkweed, so on this plant, look for a variety of alternate and opposite leaves. There's no petiole attaching the leaf to the stem. There are many orange, unscented umbels when the plant is in flower midsummer. It's also important to note that this milkweed does not have a milky sap when the leaves or stem are broken. The plants grow to about 3 feet tall, and butterflyweed is common in dry, sunny habitats. The bright green on this map shows where butterflyweed is commonly found. During midsummer, you can look for the bright orange umbels. When the plant is not in flower, make sure to touch the plant to determine if the leaves are stiff and hairy. Look for both alternate and opposite leaves. Also notice the seed pods in the middle picture, which point upwards generally and are smooth. Asclepias sullivantii, Sullivant's milkweed, has long oval leaves that are rounded at the tip and heart-shaped at the base. The leaves clasp the stem and there's no petiole. This is a helpful key to differentiating between Sullivant's and common milkweed. Sullivant's milkweed leaves are also smooth, almost waxy in feel, with no hairs, unlike common milkweed, which are slightly fuzzy. Sullivant's milkweed has large purple umbels. This plant is also called prairie milkweed or smooth milkweed, and it grows to about 5 feet tall. Sullivant's milkweed grows in wet to moist soils and in full sun. The bright green on this map shows where Sullivant's milkweed is commonly found. Asclepias exaltata, or poke milkweed, has thin, elliptical leaves with very pointy tips. It has large, droopy, white umbels at the top of the plant. The leaves and the stem are smooth and hairless. This is the only shade-tolerant milkweed in the Midwest. It can grow in woodlots and mostly shaded conditions and prefers drier soils. The bright green on this map shows where poke milkweed is commonly found. Now we'll cover a few less common milkweeds. Some of these are on the periphery of their range in the Midwest and are less frequent because of that. Others are more conservative species that require high-quality habitat and therefore won't be found in degraded habitats. Asclepias amplexicaulis, or clasping milkweed, is ranked as highly conservative in many Midwest states, meaning that it can only grow in a relatively narrow range of conditions. It has broad, waxy leaves that clasp the stem. The leaves are broad and wavy at the margins. The stems and leaves are smooth to the touch. The flowers are pink, and it's found in sandy, sunny habitats. You can tell it apart from Sullivant's milkweed by the leaf margins. Sullivant's has straight edges. Additionally, Sullivant's milkweed prefers moist soils, while clasping milkweed is found in dry uplands. Asclepias speciosa, or showy milkweed, is a western species that reaches its eastern limits in the Midwest, so might only be found in Minnesota or northern Iowa. It has oval leaves with pointy tips. The leaves are hairy, and the flowers are particularly showy, thus its name. The flowers have extremely long hoods, giving it a spiky appearance. It occurs in sunny, moist habitats. You can tell it apart from common milkweed because common milkweed has softer, velvety hairs on the leaf and stem, and shorter flower hoods. Asclepias purpurascens, or purple milkweed, is a conservative species found in high-quality prairie remnants. It has oval leaves with pointy tips, and the sides often curl upward. The stem is smooth, but the underside has very fine hairs on it. The umbel is dark purple, often at the tip of the plant. It prefers sun or partial shade and moderate moisture. You can tell it apart from common milkweed by the leaf shape. Common milkweeds has more rounded tips, and the placement of the umbel. Common milkweed's umbel is typically in the leaf axil, where the leaf meets the stem, and not at the very top of the plant. Asclepias hirtella, or tall green milkweed, is also highly conservative. It has long, narrow leaves, up to 6 inches long. They alternate on the stem, and they have hairy veins. The rest of the leaf and stem may be smooth or slightly hairy, and they have whitish umbels originating at the leaf axils in the middle and the upper leaves. The whole plant may reach 3 feet tall, and it's found in sunny, mostly dry habitats. It looks a bit like whorled milkweed, but whorled milkweed has leaves in whorls of 3 to 6 around the stem, and it only grows to about 20 inches tall. There are a few plants that could be mistaken for milkweed. One of the most common is the common dogbane. These plants can be especially confusing early in the season, prior to the flowering or branching out of milkweeds or dogbane. Even more confusing, they're in the same plant family as milkweeds and have a white milky sap. So do not use the presence of a milky sap as an indicator that the plant is a milkweed. The upper right image shows a common milkweed on the left, next to a young dogbane plant on the right. In the field, you'll be able to touch these two plants and notice that the dogbane has thin, waxy leaves. They're kind of flappy. The milkweed leaves are slightly fuzzy and stiffer. The common milkweed leaf also has a pink midvein, while the dogbane has a white one. As they grow, the dogbane becomes highly branched with a red stem. Their flowers are clustered, but not in the distinctive umbel shape of a milkweed flower. Leaves are 3 inches long at the most. And there's also a milky sap and a white midvein. They often grow in large clusters and often are near or mixed with milkweed. Make sure to get familiar with how these plants feel to the touch. This is an important way to tell the difference between the two. Toadflax, or butter and eggs, is an invasive plant that could be mistaken for whorled milkweed or tall green milkweed, especially early in the season. It grows in open field habitats. Toadflax's leaves alternate up the stem. It has no milky sap. Toadflax leaves are thicker and less grass-like than whorled milkweeds, and there's no milky sap. Toadflax leaves are narrower than tall green milkweeds, which can be as wide as ½ an inch, and tall green milkweed does have a milky sap. Leafy spurge is another invasive plant that could be mistaken for whorled milkweed when not in bloom. It grows in open field habitats and has lance-shaped leaves that can be wider toward the tip. The leaves are smooth and they alternate up the stem. It also has a milky sap. When comparing it to whorled milkweed, look for the whorls of leaves around the stem on whorled milkweed. And remember that leafy spurge's leaves alternate up the stem. Take a moment to quiz yourself on the plants shown here. In a very moist, sunny habitat, you find 2 potential milkweeds. What are they? Read the description in each box. 5 options are listed at the bottom. Which one is in picture A and which one is in picture B? Pause the video to give yourself more time. This slide will advance in about 5 seconds. The plant in box A is Sullivant's milkweed, and the plant in box B is swamp milkweed. In a dry, sunny habitat, you find 2 potential milkweeds. What are they? Press pause to give yourself some more time. This slide will advance in about 5 seconds. The plant in box A is butterflyweed, and the plant in box B is whorled milkweed. Here, in a slightly moist, mostly sunny habitat, you find 2 potential milkweeds. What are they? Press pause to give yourself some more time. The plant in box A is dogbane, and the plant in box B is common milkweed. Thank you for viewing the training for milkweed identification in the Midwest. This is a good start to learning the milkweeds you're most likely to find while conducting the Integrated Monarch Monitoring Program. As mentioned at the beginning, this is not a comprehensive list, so browse a plant ID guide for your local area at some point to see what else you could find. Thank you, and happy monitoring!